Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at shock, what this is and how to apply it from your wizard in Diablo Immortal. Let's go. So today we're going to be looking at shock. So we're going to be looking at what is shock in Diablo Immortal and how you can inflict shock on an enemy. So I'm not going to go through all the essences that have it. I'm going to talk through top line as always. You know I like to keep my videos short and to the point, and I just want to give you an idea of how you can actually utilize this within your builds for your wizard in Diablo Immortal. So firstly, what is shock? Well, the easiest way for me to tell you what shock is to show you on the training dummy. So I'm going to go here and this skill has shock in it. So shocked, continually taking damage whilst also taking increased lightning damage. So shocked will give continual damage, and then it also takes increased lightning damage. So this means that if you are using a skill or essence that inflicts shock, then anything that is a continual damage or anything that boosts continual damage or anything that is lightning damage will be increasing your damage on that target. So you can shock a target and then you can increase your damage by using something that is continually damaging and something that is lightning damage. So I would say going for lightning damage would be more beneficial. But obviously if you're using things like Pain Clasp or if you're using things like Grace of the Flagellant set, this will work alongside or hand in hand with the shock that you're inflicting on your enemies. So now let's have a look at things that you can do to increase shock. So what I've got here is the shock that we were using is from Autumnal Crest. So this one, slow time now surrounds you with a static field that follows you, damaging, applying shock to all nearby enemies. Slow time damage is increased by 18%, slow time damage increased 10% because I've got the awakened slot on that. Another option you could use on the helm is Vaish's Resourceful Countenance. So a lot of people use that in PvP. I'll show you the description for that at the essence transfer. This is Autumnal Crest is what I generally use in PvE. And Vaish's Resourceful Countenance is the form of shock that I would use in PvP. So Vaish's Resourceful Countenance, shock now launches an electric orb that explodes on impact, creating an electric field that pursues enemies and inflicts them with shock. Scorch damage is increased by 18%. So that is a couple of essences that you can use to inflict shock. Now, what can you do to obviously benefit the most from that or give the most damage while using shock in your build? Well, what you want to do is you want to focus on the skills, legendary gems, essences that will give you lightning damage. So you can see in the build that I've got, I have the Electrocute as my primary attack. I also have Lightning Nova, and this has an essence on that for inflicting or gaining more Lightning Nova by two enemies that are inflicted with shock. So if shock is applied on an enemy, when they're hit by Lightning Nova, it will create more Lightning Nova, and that then means that it will have higher damage from that skill as well as obviously from the shock. It's a little bit long-winded and a little bit confusing, and I think this is probably why I have not seen anyone make a video on it before. So taking a look at the skills tab, so when you click on Electrocute, so Electrocute is also lightning. It actually says here arc lightning from your fingertips. So arc lightning from your fingertips, dealing 31,658 to 42,105 damage to the first enemy struck, and then leaping to 3 additional enemies. So Electrocute is what we're using hand in hand with the shock essence that we have on the helm. Electrocute critical hits also shock enemies, so you're getting shock as well from Electrocute, causing them to take 6,331 damage every second for 3 seconds. Damage is increased by 90%, Electrocute damage is increased by 10%. Electrocute also increases your primary attack speed by 6% for 3.2 seconds, stacking up to a maximum of 5 times. Electrocute damage is increased by 10%. Now I have a feeling that because I'm using Vitus, I don't think that actually does increase your primary attack speed. I'm pretty sure that we've covered this in a video before. However, I'm still getting that damage increase by 10% from this essence, which is why I'm still using that on the offhand here. Now another essence that I'm using is the Lightning Nova, as I mentioned. So with this one, Lightning Nova now leashes a wild arc that jumps rapidly between random targets, with dealing 30,053 damage to any enemies it hits. When it hits an enemy afflicted with shock, it leaves behind damaging sparks of electricity. maximum 3 charges, lightning nova damage increased 18%. Now, one thing that you'll have noticed is in the essence description, which I'll show you in a second, in the essence description for runaway lightning, it doesn't actually mention when it hits an enemy afflicted with shock, it leaves behind damaging sparks of electricity. It doesn't mention that in the actual description. So this is why it's sometimes important to actually check the skill description for essences as well as the essence description, because often you'll find there's more information in the skill description for each essence. Now, we've also got this one: when lightning nova hits a shocked enemy, it unleashes another lightning nova. Cannot occur more often than once every 4.5 seconds. So this means it's not only shocking, it's not, oh my god, I cannot. When it hits an enemy affected with shock, it leaves behind damaging sparks of electricity. So not only is it leaving behind damaging sparks of electricity, it's also going to be creating more lightning nova. So each time it hits a shocked enemy, it unleashes another lightning nova, which means you can pretty much have continual damage coming from lightning nova, or continual lightning nova hitting that target with these essences. I'm sorry if I'm making this confusing. I just want to try and explain it the best I can in a really top line and easy to understand way for everyone. So yeah, that is what we're using. We're using the Electrocute for shock, we're using slow time for shock, and then we're getting increased damage because of the shock from Electrocute and from lightning nova. We're also getting increased damage to the shocked enemy from one of my legendary gems, which is Void Spark. So the description here: dealing damage conjures a Void Spark for 6 seconds. While the Void Spark is active, dealing damage has a 30% chance to unleash a lightning that chains up to 8 enemies. So because this is unleashing lightning, that is lightning damage. So that means this works alongside that shock. So this will then inflict more damage to shocked enemies. Another option you could use is obviously Lightning Core. So if you are free to play or mid spender, you could use Lightning Core in place of Void Spark in this build, and that will still give you a really nice amount of damage because it is still a lightning damage item. So let's do a 30-second damage test with this build. I'm actually going to make a complete separate build video for this. This video I just wanted to talk about shock, but I will obviously link the build for the build that I've used here. I will link in the caption for this video as well. So let's head over and we're going to do a 30-second burst now. And I might have missed like half a second there, but this is a really nice damage build. It's actually what I've been using in Vanguard and in Gauntlet as well, and I find I get quite a decent amount of damage from this because of the amount of shock that it's inflicting, and it is like a continual, you're pretty much continuously damaging from all of your skills. You can see here on the training dummy at the top, I'm going to click on that so you can see the things that are active there coming up to 30 seconds. So in 30 seconds, we've got 5.8 million damage per second, which is a really, really nice amount of damage. So this is over 300 million damage in 1 minute. When you take a look at the breakdown, obviously, yes, it looks like slow time isn't doing anything. That is because slow time, you're not using it for the damage, you're using it for the shock. So slow time is inflicting that shock, and then you can see Lightning Nova is doing an insane amount of damage there at 46.8 million, 26.6% of my overall damage in that 30-second burst is coming from Lightning Nova. And that is because, as I mentioned, where it's hitting the shocked enemies and then it's releasing more Lightning Nova and it's giving that critical hit, it's really, really, really effective in this. And then obviously the next most powerful skill that we've got in this build is the primary attack, and that is 18.5, and that is again because it is a lightning based skill. So this is what it looks like overall. I just wanted to show you, as I said, top line to give you an idea of what shock is and how you can utilize this in your builds to actually inflict more damage on enemies. As I mentioned, in PvP, you could go for Vacia's Resourceful Countenance, and in PvP, obviously, stick with the Autumnal Crest, and it will give you that really nice amount of damage. You could also swap out Vacia's Resourceful Countenance in this. I just prefer to use the Autumnal Crest simply because you don't really have to do anything other than press it once. Whereas with Vacia's Resourceful Countenance, you need to aim it and everything as well. And on mobile, that can be a little bit more tricky to do. We can just test that quickly. So if I change my skill to Scorch, so I'm going to equip that there. And then we'll inherit the essence for Vaish's Resourceful Countenance here instead. Just so that you can have an idea of how this one works as well. So I will show you the shock from this first. So let's just reset the damage log there. So it isn't actually showing us shock at the moment. Oh, there we go. Shock, increased lightning damage taken. So this is a different level of shock to the Autumnal Crest. So this is just increasing lightning damage, which is kind of interesting because I didn't actually realize there was a difference between the two. So we've all learned something today. And we'll see, yeah, you can already see this is not as strong as actually using Autumnal Crest. The damage per second is already significantly lower here. And yeah, it's kind of surprising actually. I would have expected it to be a little bit higher than this. I just reset it by mistake. I was meant to do a breakdown then. Let me try this again. These mistakes always happen when I'm trying to film with my voiceover at the same time. This is why I barely ever do the voiceover while I'm actually filming, and normally just add the voiceover on at the end because I can edit out my mistakes like this. Okay, let's reset this. Let's do that first. And okay, it's actually a decent amount of damage now. We'll do a 30-second test again. That went in the complete opposite direction to where I landed it, so that will affect the result. This is what I mean, sometimes on mobile you can aim a skill and it doesn't always aim exactly where you put it, which is a little bit frustrating. Okay, so in 30 seconds we've got a little bit less damage from this loadout. Might have been more if my Scorch had actually aimed in the correct place, but we've got 5.4 million damage per second and 164 million damage in 30 seconds. And let's take a look. I keep clicking on the party thing instead of the breakdown. So the breakdown here, you can see the majority of the damage is still coming from Lightning Nova. Still a small amount of damage from Scorch. Kind of disappointing. You would expect a little bit more damage from that, as it is obviously a little bit more of a damage based skill and not just shock. And then obviously the second largest amount of damage is coming from the Electrocute once again. So if we take a look in the skill tab for Scorch, so Scorch now launches an electric orb that explodes on impact, creating an electric field that pursues enemies for 4 seconds, dealing 16,145 damage and applying shock. Maximum of 2 charges. Scorch damage is increased by 18%. Cooldown is decreased by 10%. So obviously this is a slightly different effect overall to the Autumnal Crest, which is why I generally go for Autumnal Crest in PvE. But as I said, this Scorch works quite nicely in PvP because of the fact that it pursues enemies, so it will chase enemies around for you for a few seconds, and it does increase that shock on, it does inflict that shock, sorry, on enemies as well. So that is basically it from me today for this video. I hope you found this helpful. I've had a few questions about what shock is by players in game, and so I wanted to make a video explaining it. I don't think anyone else has done a video on this yet, so yeah, I hope you find this helpful. As I said, the way to utilize it the best in your build is for going for anything else that has a lightning damage. So lightning damage from legendary gems, lightning damage from skills. That will give you the best outcome no matter which Scorch you're using. Which Scorch, oh my god, I cannot talk. No matter which shock you're using, if you're using shock on the helm from Scorch or if you're using shock on the helm from Slow Time, going in with anything else that has lightning damage will obviously increase your damage overall. So I hope you found this helpful. Please let me know your thoughts on shock in the comments. Is this something that you focus on using in your builds or not? And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.
Official Diablo Partner.